Hi, hello, I'm Sam Harrison and I read, review and discuss fantasy and science fiction books. And today we're here to discuss my Q1 wrap-up. So, for those who are spoiler conscious, this will be a completely spoiler-free video. I'm not even going to really go into the plots of stuff. What I'm going to be doing is running through every single fantasy and sci-fi series that I'm reading and tell you guys where I'm at. We're going to go through the completed series, so anything where I've read the entire series. We're going to go through the up-to-date, so that will be where I'm waiting for the author to write stuff, I'm up to date. That makes a lot of sense to me now. The in progress series, which will be any series that I'm working my way through. I'll also talk to you guys a little bit about how many books I have left in those series. And then finally, there'll be the DNF section. So I have two sections here, which is the soft DNF, which are books that I have put down, or series that I've put down that I may come back to in the future. And then we've got the hard DNF, which are series that I'm pretty certain I will never read or never carry on with. So I've got quite a lot of series here, so we should probably get going so that I can talk you through them. So in fact, let's do a count. So we have 1, 2, 3.
One eternity later.
We have 36 total series to talk about today, so I'm going to try and not spend more than a minute on each one. Let's go straight in with my completed series. So I've managed to add one to this total from last year. So starting off with the Bloodsworn Saga. So I finished the Bloodsworn Saga. This is a Viking fantasy story by John Gwynne. I finished this at the end of the last year. Basically, as soon as the final book came out, I read it. The final book was a little bit of a disappointment for me based on the first two and how much I loved them. But I'm still instantly in on anything that John Gwynne writes, and I would love to return to this universe in a few years and see kind of the changes based on what happens at the end of Fury of the Gods. The Idan trilogy by Philip Chase. This is one of my favourite fantasy series of all time, and I have finished this series. The final book in this trilogy was kind of the inverse of the Bloodsworn Saga, and the final book, Return to Idan, was my number one book of 2024, and one of the best fantasy books I've ever read in my entire life. And there is actually a sequel book coming later this year, something like Whispers of Darkness or something like that. I'm terrible at remembering the name of this book. The cover's been announced. Philip's talked about when it's coming out. For now, I'm up to date, but I'm extremely excited to read the next one. The next up is the Empire of the Wolf. So I have finished the Empire of the Wolf trilogy. I absolutely loved this trilogy, and again, the final book was a little bit of a disappointment based on how much I loved the first two. I do think Justice of Kings is maybe my favourite book I've read since starting this channel. I don't know. It's real close. Justice of Kings and Return to Idan and Of War and Ruin are like my top books that I've read. And while the final book unfortunately did not set my world on fire, I have purchased the first book in the sequel trilogy, The Grave Empire, but I haven't started it yet, so it doesn't go on this list. Next up is the Red Rising trilogy. This is by Pierce Brown. I have finished the entire Red Rising trilogy. Again, the final book disappointed me, I'm gonna say here. The first two books were pretty good, and the third book was kind of middling, and I felt like it wasted a lot of my time. I am going to read on because people tell me that the sequel books are infinitely better, apart from the first book, Iron Gold, which is a bit of a struggle, while Brown kind of adapts to single POV to multi POV, you know? So I will read those books, but because I haven't started them yet, they're not on the list. Skyward. So I have read all 4 Skyward books and all 3 Skyward novellas. I am Skywarded out. And this series is kind of, sort of finished. There is a sequel series planned called Skyward Legacy that Jancy Patterson, who wrote the side story novellas, is going to be writing. I will pick those up because I do like these characters, but I don't hold out much hope for them because the first 2 of the 3 Skyward novellas were quite middling, and for me, kind of felt like they should have been weaved into book 3 as a multi-POV book. That's what I would have said personally. Greenbone Saga is the next one. So technically, I've not finished this series because I have not read the novella, The Jade Setter of Janloon. I think that's what it's called. I'm kind of holding out on that one with the plan that I might try and track down one of the super rare physical copies, because I would love to have everything Greenbone physical. I have the broken binding editions for books 1 through 3. And I'd also love to get something signed by Fonda because genuinely I love this series, and it's in my top 10 fantasy series of all time. I think I'm going to reread it at some point. Not anytime in the near future, but maybe next year. Final and the addition to this list of completed series is the Reckoners series by Brandon Sanderson. I've also read the sidequel book by Brandon Sanderson and Stephen Bowles called Lux. This is Brandon Sanderson's kind of post-apocalyptic supervillain series. I really like this series, and I do feel like maybe book 1 was the best. Although books 2 and 3 were good, I felt like the antagonist in book 2 was kind of middling, and then in book 3, I don't know. I was invested the entire way through, but I do feel like book 1 was the best. Lux was really good as well. I would rate Lux quite a lot. So if you're into superhero-y stories, or you like Brandon Sanderson and want to see him write stories set in kind of our world, Reckoners is a great one to get on board with. Let's keep talking about Brandon Sanderson. We're going to move into series that I am up to date on, and this is a very tenuous up to date, which is that I am up to date on the Cosmere. So I've read all of the major Stormlight, Mistborn. I've read a lot of the novellas, the side stories. I think that I have yet to read a few of the short stories, and there's one specifically that is going to be leading into the big Cosmere book for this year, which is called Isles of the Emperdarch. So that particular book, when that comes out, I will read the preceding other stories. But yeah, I got up to date on the Cosmere last year by reading Elantris and Wind and Truth. And yeah, really enjoyed my time with Sanderson's Cosmere stuff, honestly. All of his books are a blast. I'm really looking forward to reading his Wheel of Time stuff too. Next up on Up to Date, so the Shadowbinders trilogy by Andrew Watson. I have now read book 2. So I've read book 1, which was Harbinger of Justice, and the second book, which was The Black Mantle. Really enjoyed both books, and the way that The Black Mantle ends really strongly sets up a third book, which I'm super psyched to read. There is already a title out for it, but I can never remember what that is. Shadowbinders is kind of a desert set fantasy. It's indie, it's all available on Kindle Unlimited. So if you're interested in reading some kind of more desert inspired fantasy stuff, and I would say that if you like Sanderson, you would probably really like the Shadowbinders trilogy. Next up, I have Hierarchy by James Islington. This is The Will of the Many, the series for the Will of the Many. The Strength of the Few, I think, is out this year. Like, the cover's been revealed, which feels like it would be very early if it was not out this year. I'm looking forward to reading the sequel because the most interesting thing about The Will of the Many was how it ended. I did not love this book as much as a lot of other people did, but what I will say was Islington is a great writer that you can really binge read through. I think I read 400 pages of The Will of the Many in like 2 days, which is pretty fast for me. And yeah, really enjoyed the first book and looking forward to book 2. I will probably try and read this one in advance of publication because I think it's coming out from one of the publishers that will send me advance books. Next up, we have The Bound and the Broken, my favourite fantasy series of all time. I am completely up to date on this one as of like a week and a bit ago when I finished Of Empires and Dust, book 4. I got a pre-release arc for this one and really enjoyed it. It did feel a little bit like Of War and Ruin Part 2, which is not a bad thing, seeing as Of War and Ruin is one of the best fantasy books I've ever read. But I almost gave this one a 4 out of 5 and not a 5 out of 5, which would have been the lowest I've rated anything from Ryan Cahill since the first book. It was good, but I kind of came away going like, this was fantastic, but I have a few questions, and there's a lot to do in book 5, the final book in the series. Shadow of the Leviathan, which is the name of the series that The Tainted Cup is book 1 of. This is by Robert Jackson Bennett. I liked The Tainted Cup fine. I have felt no desire to pick up Drop of Corruption yet. I almost put this series in the like soft DNF, and in fact, I think A Drop of Corruption is out. This should be an in progress series. So apologies, we'll come back to it later. But Shadow of the Leviathan, I liked Tainted Cup fine. There is a lot of potential in this series, which is why I'm not DNFing it. But the beginning of book 1 was pretty hard going for me personally. And I would have DNF'd it if people hadn't told me it was worth continuing. So yeah, Drop of Corruption, I am going to read, and I would like to read it this year, but I've got a lot on my plate, so we'll see. Next up is The Dresden Files by Jim Butcher. This is one of my top fantasy series of all time. This is an urban fantasy series. We're like 17 books deep at this point, about a wizard who lives in Chicago called Harry Dresden. The way the final book leaves the world of Harry Dresden, it was absolutely mind-blowing, and I cannot wait for 12 months, which apparently has been submitted to publishers, so hopefully will be published this year or early next year. Would love to know when that's going to be, Jim, if you're watching. Please, you can email me. My email is in my bio. I won't tell anyone. A Song of Ice and Fire will never have another book. I'm almost certain. But I am up to date. And if you don't know what this is, I'm surprised. Kingkiller Chronicle by Patrick Rothfuss. I have read both books in the Kingkiller Chronicle. I am not giving that man another penny, so I'm not going to read the novella. And I don't know why this isn't in the DNF section, I'll be honest with you. This probably should be in the soft DNF or hard DNF. But to be honest, maybe I would read the third book if it came out. But the second book was such a drop in quality that I was not super interested in reading any more in that universe. So maybe I wouldn't read the third one. I honestly don't know. I feel like if the hype was up, maybe I'd read it. Finally, I am up to date on the Hybrid Helix. So this is the superhero sci-fi space opera by J.C.M. Byrne. This is one of my favourite, and this is really hard. If I was doing my favourite sci-fi series of all time, this would be like maybe number 2 behind Dune. What sci-fi series do I like? I honestly don't know. I don't read much sci-fi, clearly. I've actually taken sci-fi out of the channel description because I realised that I was struggling to read one sci-fi book a month. So there you have it. Yeah, Hybrid Helix is genuinely fantastic. I absolutely love it. As soon as each book comes out, I full on devour them. I cannot wait to see what happens to Rohan and crew from where we ended Suppression of Powers, which was the latest book. And I feel like J.C.M. Byrne is really, really shifting into gear to set up some major story moves. And I just, yeah, super hype. Can't wait to read more. In progress, so we have the Villains series by V.E. Schwab. I thought there was only one book remaining in this series, but there's two. The second book has just been finished and handed to the publisher by V.E. Schwab, so probably publishing next year. I might save the second Villains book to read closer to the final book coming out. Simply, I really enjoyed the first book. And as you guys know, I love superhero style stories, and I do think that V.E. Schwab really nailed the two characters, the two protagonists in Villains. So yeah, looking forward to reading the final two books in that series. Wheel of Time. So if you don't count the book that I'm currently reading, so I'm literally reading Knife of Dreams right now, which is book 11. I have 3 books left. That's pretty cool, dude. Like, 3 books left in one of the longest fantasy series of all time. I think probably the longest mainstream fantasy series. Like, Sanderson's Cosmere stuff, there's obviously more to that. But that's like 10 series, not one continuous series with the same characters in the same world. I do feel like nobody is doing it like Robert Jordan has done it. And yeah, love this series. Cannot wait to read the next book, the first Sanderson book. And I'm really enjoying Knife of Dreams so far. I'm only like 3 chapters in, but the prologue is 12% of the book, so I'm actually quite far. Next up, The Deck Collection by Andrew Givler. I've not read a single book in this series since the last series update. This is another urban fantasy. I'm a big urban fantasy guy, and I really like this particular series. I find it really funny, and the audiobooks are fantastic. I think Matthew Mora is the narrator. These are indie as well, so they're all on Kindle Unlimited. And yeah, if you are interested in reading some urban fantasy and you've finished Dresden Files, then The Deck Collection is probably my #1 recommendation. Great series. Can't wait to read the next one, which is Death Tax. I started Death Tax, and I started it on a long drive. And after like an hour, I was like, I actually don't know what's going on. I've not been paying attention. I've been focused too much on the driving. So I paused it, and I'm going to restart the book when I get to it. It seemed like it was pretty good, but like I said, I just was not paying enough attention. And like, that's not how I like to read books. I don't like to like half read it. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, no one likes that. Power of the Stars by Brian Wilson. So I think a 3rd book has now been announced, but there were, at the time I made these notes last year for some of these series, there were only 2 books remaining in this series. It's an ongoing sci-fi series of which I have read the kind of intro novella. I really enjoyed what I read. I really liked the powers and the like world building of what I read, and I'm looking forward to reading more of this series. It's extremely low priority for me right now, because I have a lot of indie books on my plate, and I also have just a lot of really big series. And I'll be honest with you guys, because Sun Eater is ending this year, if I'm going to read anything sci-fi, it's going to be Sun Eater probably, so that I can catch up and read the final book with everyone else when it comes out. Next up, we have The Wandering Inn. So I slow read The Wandering Inn, a chapter a week for like a year and a half, and eventually decided to put that on pause so that I could binge read it. I'm going to be carrying on with The Wandering Inn very, very soon. I've put it on my TBR 2 months in a row, and we're getting to the point where I realise why I stopped doing TBRs, and I might stop doing it again, because I keep promising people I'm going to read these books and then taking too long and never getting around to them, and I feel bad about that. So long story short, I'm going to progress The Wandering Inn, and I'm going to finish book 2 and hopefully book 3 this year. That's my plan. Next up, we have The Pandemonium by M.R. Carey. I have read the first book, which is called Infinity Gate. It's only a duology, so I only have 1 book left, but every M.R. Carey book I've read has been a slam dunk. and the second book, Echo of Worlds, I already own it, so I just need to get around to reading it. Don't know why I haven't loved the first one. It's probably because I'm trying to work through some of the longer series, so things like Bound and the Broken, Hybrid Helix, Wheel of Time, so that I can kind of clear the deck a bit to start Malazan later in the year. So yeah, maybe once we've got some of these in progress books down, I'll start to look at some of the sci-fi stuff that I've been kind of neglecting and that sort of stuff. So Sun Eater is the next thing. I have 3 Sun Eater books remaining, not counting novellas. I don't think there's actually any novellas left. I think I've read all the novellas. And I don't think there's any short stories left. There might be 1 short story collection left. But yeah, so 3 novels left. So Kingdoms of Death, Ashes of Man, and Disquiet Gods. I'm really looking forward to reading the next 2, knowing that they were originally 1 book. Super excited to see how that kind of works out and pans out for Rockio. And a couple of my friends are up to date, and they have said some really interesting things about the final books in, well, the next 3 books in this series. So looking forward to reading them. Southern Reach by Jeff Vandermeer. So there are 2 books left in the original trilogy, and there is a new sequel book that has since come out. I don't know why I haven't read the next book in Southern Reach, because it's quite short, and I do like to prioritise the odd short book every month. Maybe I'll try and get that one read next month. I don't know. We'll think about it. Powder Mage by Brian McClellan. This is a gunpowder Napoleonic era fantasy. It's not set in our world, but it's kind of that sort of era of technology and development. I loved book 1. One of my favourite books I read in 2020, or maybe it was last year. One of my favourite books I read that year, I think. But I've been told that books 2 and 3 are not as good, so I've been less bothered about going back to it. I will do eventually. It's a really easy series for me to clear up because it's a fast-paced read and there's only 2 books left in it, but I just haven't done it. After that, we have Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb. I've got 12 books remaining. I talked a lot to Philip Chase about this when we did Dear Doctor Fantasy recently, and really enjoyed this. The first 4 books that I have read. The 4th book, which I read, which was Ship of Magic, is probably one of the best books I've read since coming back to reading. Absolutely loved it. Definitely the best book 1 in a trilogy I've read in God knows how long. Why have I not read books 2 and 3? Couldn't tell you. And I will go back to this series eventually. But I think at this point, I kind of want to keep it to 1 mega series at a time. So at the moment it's Wheel of Time. Next up it's going to be Malazan. Who knows after that? Finally, Rivers of London series by Ben Aronovich. This is my friend Laura's favourite fantasy series. She loves urban fantasy just like me, and I feel like I need to read the rest of these books to see, because I'm a big urban fantasy guy. And there's 2 urban fantasy series set in the UK, 2 major ones, and one of them I thought was kind of middling. So maybe I need to read more Rivers of London. I read and remember very well book 1, and I think I stalled on this series at book 4. So I want to go back. I want to read maybe the whole series again, to be honest. And I loved book 1 enough that I think it's probably worthwhile to do so. The Unraveling by Elle McInerney. So this is the sequel, the series that starts with Soul Stealer. I have the sequel book, which is called Overlord. It's kind of not a sequel. It's kind of like a prequel, sequel, sidequel sort of thing. I have it. I have the physical version, and I'm genuinely excited to read it. When am I going to get to it? God knows. There's 36 series here, and most of them I have books to read in. First Law is one of the series I've added this year. So there are 2 books remaining in the original First Law trilogy. I'm only really talking about that trilogy for now. I have heard incredible things about the sequel trilogy, so probably will read those too. But from where I'm sitting currently, book one was very good. I'm looking forward to seeing where the book goes now it's kind of got a bit more direction. The series. Dungeon Crawler Carl. I just recently finished the first book in this series, so I have 6 remaining. I will probably be prioritizing these books because of how good they are as audio experiences, and I'm really enjoying listening to audio stuff on my long walks and my runs at the moment. So yeah, great audio experiences are kind of going to the front of the queue right now, and Dungeon Crawler Carl was really fun. And I actually think that they probably benefit from being binge read because you don't forget the mechanics between the books, if that makes sense. And that is everything for In Progress. So we're going to go to the DNF section now. And I'm going to apologise to you if these are your favourite books of all time. I have one soft DNF, which is one that I'm probably the most likely to go back to, but in a very distant future, which is The Wars of Light and Shadow by Janny Wurtz. So I struggled with book one of The Wars of Light and Shadow. It took me 3 weeks to read, or maybe was it 6 weeks? It took me so long to read that it almost killed the channel because it took me so long to read it. And I dithered between a 2 and a 3 star for this book. But the way that people talk about this series, the encouragement that I've received to carry on with it, really makes me want to go back to it someday. But this is an 11-book series, so this is kind of going to the back of the queue behind Malazan, behind Realm of the Elderlings. I do want to read it, but it's a back of the queue series for me currently. Cradle by Will White. So, I liked Cradle book one a lot. It was kind of surprising and interesting. And then book two was so boring that I DNF'd it within the first 100 pages. It just felt like, I don't know why, but I just felt really bored by it. And I was never bored in book one, not a single page worth. So people do say that after book two, everything just kind of rockets up and gets incredible. But where I was in book two, I found myself falling asleep while trying to read it, like in the middle of the day when I was well rested and caffeinated, and that's not a good look for a book. Alex Verus by Benedict Jacker. So I thought that book one was very middling, and this is the UK urban fantasy that I was talking about earlier. So book one, the chapters were so long that it's a 250 page book, but there were only 10 chapters, and each chapter was taking me like an hour to read. They were just so long, and they needed to be broken up better. And I'm the kind of person who doesn't like to stop reading in the middle of a chapter, but I did it tons during this book because it just couldn't hold my attention because there were no natural breaks. So hopefully this is fixed in future books. I would like to go back to it, but I'll be honest with you guys, there are tons of other urban fantasy books I'm more interested in, like the Time Marked Warlock series by Seamus Stovall, Rivers of London. I need to get up to date on Deck Collection. So really, there's not much room for Alex Verus in my life, but maybe someday down the line, I'll pick it up. Finally, in the soft DNFs, we have Tales of Tremaine by R.R. Verdi. This is the book of which, the series of which First Binding is the first book. I DNF'd First Binding 200 pages in. I was told at 200 pages was where it got good, and it didn't get good, so I put it to one side. I think that half of the reason why I didn't like First Binding is the kind of reader that I am, and the other half is maybe the headspace I was in. I was in a bit of a slump with my reading. So I've soft DNF'd this because I like a lot about it, but I think I want to kind of forget what I've read and come back to it. Probably when the series is finished. So once the series is finished and people have, enough reviews are out there to say, yes, 100% you need to read this series, then I'll go through and read it. Hard DNFs. These are 2 series that I'm not going to read another book in. So number 1, The 3 Bodies Problem by Cixin Liu. I gave book 1 2 stars. I found it obtuse, boring, and all the characters to be incredibly samey. If this is your favourite series of all time, you're a very different reader to me, and I don't think this book is bad. I just do not think it's for me. It just was not... There were like 2 or 3 bits that I was like, wow, this is super cool, but 2 or 3 bits in a 300 plus page novel ain't it. I'm not reading 2 books more than they're both longer. No, not reading that. Murderbot Diaries. I have a particular issue with the Murderbot Diaries, which is number 1, the novellas are incredibly overpriced. It is criminal how these are priced. They're like 150 to 200 pages and they're like £18. That actually is a crime. That's bad. Like, I'm not supporting anyone who is going to be about that life in that pricing for their products. Secondly, the structure of all of these books is basically the same. The one full-size novel has kind of a interesting and different structure to it, but basically the rest of the books are the same structure. And once I realized that, they became so predictable that I just completely lost interest. I don't know how many books have been written since I stopped reading them, like 2 or 3 maybe, but I fully am never going to be doing that again. Kind of put off of Martha Wells in general based on those books, and also a few reviews I saw for Witch King said it didn't hit. So currently Murderbot is a hard DNF, and Martha Wells also, like all of her books are kind of off the TBR for me for now. So that's it. That's all 36 series, and apart from one mistake of putting Drop of Corruption, what's it called, the Shadow of the Leviathan, in the wrong section, I think we pretty much nailed that whole thing, and only 32 minutes, so less than a minute per book, so book per series. So hopefully that's given you a bit of an idea of my likes and dislikes and where I'm at on all of these series, and I hope that you've enjoyed watching this video, and if you have, please subscribe to see me read more books in all of these series. Thanks so much for watching, and I will speak to you on Friday. Bye.